Hey everyone. Sabrina should be here soon. Sometimes she runs a couple minutes late. You guys been to a lot of trainings today?
Yeah.
I've been with you in most of them.
I double checked. It's because so I ended up going to 7.5 after today, not 8, because of one got canceled or something.
Yeah, Shay's got canceled. I was super bummed because that one looked cool. Hey Sabrina.
Hello, good to see you all. Um, yeah, I was bummed about that one too. Um, so I think are we all here? Are we waiting on one more person? I think, or was I confused by someone who requested a recording?
I think Dorothy just wanted a recording. I think this is everyone else.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is a solid group. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right in. My internet's been a little spotty, so I'm gonna go ahead and share the slides with everyone right now, so that you have it in case I get uh booted from the meeting. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put these in the chat right away, and then we can go ahead and get started. Slideshow. Now, it looks like the meeting is already being recorded. Is that from the previous person?
They've been recording all day. I think that all the trainings are just automatically set to record, so like we don't have to worry about it.
Oh, perfect. Okay, because I wondered if it was going to the cloud or something. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so we're going to be helping tutees with unfamiliar writing styles. And what I mean by that is with writing styles which they're not familiar with, but hopefully we are. So before we jump in, I'm curious about your guys' history with writing. See, I have a mirror reflecting it back to you, putting you on the spot. And in order to guide this, I have a few questions to ask. The first are, what has your high school experience been with regards to writing? What kind of writing styles have you studied? Um, how is it different from your college experience? So if you guys wanted to post something really quickly in the chat, or even feel free to unmute and say it verbally. I'd love to hear that as well.
Worked with a lot of MLA, mostly like in high school, and in college, a little bit of APA.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah, good. MLA mainly, some APA. And Tiffany, was that APA in high school or starting in college?
High school, just a bit.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's
a lot more awesome. In college, though. Yeah,
for sure. That's when they really throw you into it. Good. So this is great. Thanks so much for sharing. Feel free to keep sharing. In my experience, and I think a lot of people's experience, trying to get the slide to move on. In high school, you usually start with MLA, where you have a bunch of direct quotes used as evidence. But then as you get into college, and here's my animation, the MLA gets somewhat booted, and you have all these new sudden citations. You got your APA, your ESA, all these different disciplines. And then you start to have to work with paraphrases. And different styles have different requirements. So like in APA, you can use direct quotes, but you should use them very sparingly. In ESA, no, no direct quotes allowed. You want to stick entirely to paraphrases. And so in some styles, maybe like Chicago style, you can have a healthy mix. of these. And of course, like, yeah, your MLA is still a part of it, but it's not really the only thing you'll be doing, or even the main thing. You'll be doing a bunch of other things as well. In my experience as a tutor, it seems like when we tell students to paraphrase, we tell them, okay, just write the quote in your own words and then move on. We don't really show them how to do it. And so this leads to a lot of confusion. So here's some tips for how to help them, for some common mistakes you will see your tutees committing over the course of the session, and how to help them work through it. The second major change has to do with synthesis. So in high school, you end up writing a lot of opinion essays, and some analysis essays where you go really in depth. Maybe you just use the story you're working with. Maybe you have one additional source, but you maybe you're doing a close read where you talk about the impact of the writing style itself. But then in college, you're introduced more to the synthesis essay and the literature review, where you talk more about previous research done in the field, the quote unquote academic conversation, which is already happening, which your work will eventually build on, but you kind of want to provide some context for what is going on in the academic world. So this is something also that may be new to your students in college, and something that you will have to work with in a couple of weeks as part of your Unit 299 course. So let's jump right in and click here. So section 1, paraphrasing, starting off with some good old Calvin and Hobbes, and moving right into when do we use what. So essentially, when it comes to direct quotes, mostly MLA related, if the wording of the quote is extremely powerful, if it gets the point across just so, you're going to want to include it, unless you're working with ESA or APA or something where paraphrases are really preferred. Paraphrases, especially you can use when you have like a really long quote, which you can kind of summarize for the reader, when it's style based, and when your professor prefers it. And you will have professors who are sticklers for paraphrases as well. So here's some mistakes you'll see your students committing over the course of your tutoring sessions. Sometimes, like, they'll just have blocks of quotes, which they're not sure how to work with. So it's there. They're kind of avoiding it. They're working around it. They say they'll get to it later, but would probably appreciate help, like working at least with one of those quotes, so that they feel less overwhelmed, so that you can help them break it down, and they can repeat the process you use with them for other quotes as well. The second one is the overly close paraphrase. So where the sentence structure is the same, where like essentially the student just opens up their thesaurus and finds all these important, like the main terms, input, output, does it find it and replace with some synonym and calls it a day. And the problem with this is it's pretty obvious to the professor, for starters, but the deeper problem is it shows the student doesn't understand the quote and isn't quite sure where they're headed. Here's an example of what I mean. So as you can see in this original quote, they worded it a certain way. So here, though, the student repeats so much of the language. So approach and talent, type of instruction, differentiated instruction, provides the student with options. You get different ways to deal with, grasp information as opposed to processing the content, constructing new learning, establishing new learning, progress academically, move on in education. But you can see the sentence structure is very, very similar. You have is a way to encourage equality as an instructional approach. It's not like, is it considered plagiarism? Probably not, but it's still too close to the original quote for comfort. So you're really going to want to ask the student to break it down more, to really try to internalize the meaning of the original statement before they can move forward. And then, but before we step for questions, I just want to get right into some of the like real problems. If they copy directly, like just plunk a quote down in the middle of their paper without any kind of quotation marks, yeah, that is plagiarism. And sometimes the students won't know. Sometimes they'll hear paraphrasing as defined as a statement, a quote without quotation marks, and they'll think, oh, okay, I can just put a quote in, no quotation marks, I'm fine. So you have to let them know that they do really have to do make the extra effort to reword it. There are a couple of red flags which indicate that this is happening in your student's paper, even if it's cited in using a parenthetical citation. Even if that's fine. If most of the writing style, which you've seen over the course of reading their paper, differs significantly from that one block of text which they've cited, it may not be their own words. If it is overly complex in comparison to the rest of the essay, then it'll probably not be their own words either. And don't be afraid to ask the student, hey, this is a really interesting quote you have here. Could you show me how it fits into your to the source, and have them show you the source, and then you can point out, okay, I'm glad you found the quote, but you really have to change it around a little bit. So how are we doing so far? Does this make sense? Do you have any questions? Well, good. Okay. Awesome. And then next one over. Did you guys want to do an example paraphrase, or did you want to jump right into the tips and tricks to how to help students paraphrase? Feel free to unmute or type into the chat. Either way. Oh, go ahead.
I can go either way. Yeah. I'm pretty familiar with paraphrasing now, but if anyone else would like to see an example,
Okay, sounds good. So we can probably safely move right ahead. Everyone else good? I know, Tiffany, you have some APA experience. Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. But what I want to do actually, you guys all have experience paraphrasing, and you probably developed some strategies to help you do it quickly and easily. Could you post some in the chat or say some verbally, and I will annotate this. So it'll be like a whiteboard. So what are your, like, if you think for a moment, how do you paraphrase? Like when you have to do it for your own work?
Kind of weird thinking about how to explain how to paraphrase something. You just kind of
do
it. It's like
I know for sure.
Just change the words around, maybe use some synonyms.
Yeah. Okay. So change words.
Alter sentence structure.
That's important.
Yeah, AJ, I can't think of exactly how I do it. I'm just kind of been doing it too long.
It is a super weird question. I don't blame you, and I'm putting y'all on the spot, so don't even worry about it. If you think of anything, we can come back and jot it down. If you guys also want, I enabled the annotate function, so if you guys want to write on the slide, have your 15 minutes of fame, you are welcome to. So, but yeah, thanks so much, AJ. These are great, and I know it's tough. And at any point, feel free to, like, we could be into the section if you want. Just unmute and say I got one, and we'll come on back. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and save the PNG. My method, because and the only reason I have this written down is because I've had time to think about it. So don't even stress about it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the annotation. Is my personal go-to. I read the passage. I spend a while just thinking about the passage, and then I make sure that I don't see the passage at all. I put it away. I'm staring at a blank screen. I'm staring at the wall, depending on how tired I am at that point in the night. And then I try to recreate it to the best of my ability. And then when and then I compare the quote to what I have to make sure I didn't accidentally internalize some of the phrasing too, which is a possibility, even for, veteran paraphrasers like us. So, yeah, this is what I do. Oh, whoops. Let me actually erase the whole annotate thing because it's kind of getting in our way. I thought I was being so clever, but okay. So here's the crux of it. How do we help our Tutee paraphrase? And the question is, and it's important because as you guys already saw, it's tough to internalize your own process, right? It's tough to be able to put it into words, to kind of create a bridge between their unfamiliarity with the process and your own, expertise. So what I've come up with, an acronym, we got BAM, and that's the first thing is bullet points. So have them pinpoint the most important parts of the passage. They could be most important words. They could be ideas which the passage recalls. Have them in just brief fragments jotted down. Make sure that they don't use complete sentences. Like this has to be super, I don't want to say off the cuff, but this has to be very lightning fast, essentially, because the more you get more of them in it, you get more of their wording, you get more of their writing style when it's just a couple of phrases. And then once they create those brief sentence fragments, then they can lengthen those fragments into sentences. They can do it without looking at the original text. They just take their own words and then lengthen in sentences, and then this can be repeated. Even they can take notes on the whole source, just like a couple bullet point notes, bless you, and then go from there. So for example, say they have a 20-page article. They can essentially at each point just jot down, for each paragraph a few words, and then use that to complete their paraphrases. So when you're with a student who's struggling to paraphrase, you can just have them, you can take one of those quotes that they're struggling with, and you can work with them. You can ask them to use this bullet point approach. And then once they've learned how to do it, once they see themselves successful at it, then they can apply it to other quotes later when they're working on their own time. Another thing is audio. What I've learned as a tutor is a lot of times, students freeze up when they're asked to write something. But if you simply say to them, okay, so tell me what you mean here, they tell you what they mean very clearly, very concisely, verbally. I think it might be something like writing it down feels overwhelming, writing it down feels permanent, and so there's that kind of paralysis happening. So what I do, I ask them, okay, so tell me more about this quote verbally. I've also asked them to record themselves, say using voice notes, because a lot of times what happens is I'll say, tell me about this. They'll give me this wonderful explanation. And then I'll say, great, that was wonderful. Now write down what you just said. And they'll say, what did I just say? So, you have to, and of course you can take notes what they're saying for them. And you can try to make sure you use only their wording, but I think that's riskier. I think that ends up putting you in there, and you want to leave as little trace of yourself as possible. This is their stuff. So asking them to record ahead of time, they'll have it. They can and of course the recording isn't going to be perfect. There'll be ums and uhs, there'll be like weird grammar, there'll be fillers, but all they have to do is clean it up, and they'll have a workable paraphrase, and they'll also like break down whatever I guess concern they have about the task. Once they see themselves succeeding in something unfamiliar to them, they may even begin to enjoy it. But like it'll make the whole process easier. It'll relax them. It'll make them feel competent, which they are. It's just they just have to be taught sometimes how to do the skill in the first place. And then memorization. That's kind of the method I use. Like, okay, we're gonna stare at a blank screen. Like, read this, internalize it, like figure it out as best you can. Now we're gonna stare at a blank screen. Now tell me what's happening in the quote. And this will prevent them from getting into this will keep them from copying over words, phrases, sentence structure from the original. But a couple more things about paraphrasing in general. We do want to make sure the student what the student writes accurately reflects the meaning of the passage. It's possible that they misunderstand it, and they write something which is in their own words, which isn't horribly similar to the original quote, to the original passage, but isn't quite what the passage is saying. Maybe they take something out of context. And so it's important to encourage them to maybe, like, if they're focusing on paraphrasing a paragraph, have them read the paragraph before and after in order to make sure they're not taking the author's words out of context, in order to make sure that their work is consistent with the passage's meaning. And again, make sure that it doesn't copy any part of it, and make sure 100% that the paraphrases are cited. The nice thing about like APA is that it's super straightforward. Name, comma, year, and you're good to go. ESA is similar. I think you just don't have the comma. New tutors, you will definitely have a lot of citation practice in Unit 299. And it's more fun than you think. Like you get to really study it. So you're gonna have you're gonna want to make sure that this is the case for all three things. And yeah, just remember, if you have a student who needs a little bit of help paraphrasing, just think BAM. Now, how are we doing on this? Like, do y'all have questions, comments? Okay, good. Thank you, Tiffany. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Sophia. This is perfect. Okay, good. So paraphrasing is kind of, I would call it like a micro skill. It's a skill in and of itself. It'll take place in many essays. Synthesis is more of a macro skill. It's more structural, and that's what we're going to move on to next. Oops, if I can figure out how to work this thing. Oh no, I'm still in annotate for some reason. Oh, here we go. Now I can move this thing around. Okay, so synthesis. Now, something about synthesis. I'm actually going to use it in two senses of the word. The first sense is an overall skill. It's the thing in the pyramid, which is cut off at the top here. It's part of the Bloom's taxonomy. It's a skill which you want in almost every essay that you write. If you're using more than one source, you're gonna have to know how to weave in the sources. So I'm gonna say it's a universal skill, but there is a subset of that universal skill, and that is the literature review, which is entirely synthesis based. In most essays, synthesis will be, one part of it, along with analysis, in-depth analysis of a certain source, along with, students' opinion based on the prompt. With a lit review, you're pretty much entirely synthesizing. So what that involves, you end up looking at research articles which came out as recently as possible on a certain topic, and reading through them. And this topic informs your research question. You read through them. You look for similarities in these sources. You look for differences. Now, these similarities could be similarities in opinion. These similarities could be similarities in method, in scope. Some of them, like differences, could also be like differences in method. They could come to the same conclusion, but their methods could be different, which just serves like which shows that you can come to the same conclusion through different methods, which actually helps bolster your point. There could be dissension in the sources, some academic catfights, which are kind of fun to read. And that could be something to talk about. You won't see them as frequently, but they're definitely something you can cover. You also want to look for like common themes. Subtopics. You look for common arguments within each scholarly source you're working with. The word of the day, people, is going to be overlap. That's the important thing. Some general rules of thumb. So the organization for a lit review, and for a lot of these essays, you have your overarching topic, your research question, your theme, and each paragraph should be about some subtopic relating to a question which a lot of the current scholars are covering in relation to the topic. So you want to keep it not horribly broad. You want to narrow it a little bit in each paragraph. This also helps with organization a lot, and helps you with your thesis, gives your reader a really clear roadmap through your essay. So you do want to be sure in a lit review to define your terms in your intro. And a lot of academic sources will do something similar. They'll provide a good definition, which you can paraphrase for your own literature review. But you do want to do this because you don't want to just dump your reader in and have him sink or swim. And then probably the most important point is the third bullet point. You're going to want at least 2 sources per paragraph for your literature review, because this helps you weave it in, and this helps you compare them and contrast them. You don't want just blocks like, okay, so source 1 and then source 2, source 3. Now you want maybe source 1 and source 2, and the next paragraph a bit of source 1 and source 2, but just like a different topic. A lot of these lit reviews will, or like a lot of these scholarly sources will cover multiple topics, which you can use in your own lit review. And yeah, so you want to point out, how they relate to each other, where they overlap. You're working on a spectrum here. Vague similarities, stark differences in many respects. And you also want, what I did for my lit review, I was able to find sources which actually referenced each other. So they were literally in conversation with each other. Those can help, because then when you're weaving sources together, there's already a built-in similarity. And you will find those, especially like in something as insular as writing center research. You will find that they kind of coalesce like this. Yeah, you definitely want this is in literature reviews. You want to take yourself out as much as possible until the very end, where you talk about how this how your own research will build on existing research. This is the kind of genre which you are the least part of when you are writing. Yeah, that should be your focus. So I wanted something more general. This is not from a literature review. This passage displays like weaving in multiple sources in a paragraph. So we have the following. Does anyone want to read this, or do you guys want me to read this? Me, okay. Chop's showing of 13th concerning the prison system, a form of legal slavery which persists today, and Paris is Burning, about LGBT life in the late 80s, enabled citizens and tourists alike to engage in discourse. Chop also fostered discussion through its decolonization conversation cafe, which were called Habermas's coffee shops and salons, because spontaneous dialogue would serve democracy, critical thinking, and neighborliness. And then Chop helped provide BIPOC a space in which to speak safely and to an audience. One such expression was a slam poetry teach-in, bolstering the counterpublic, as, quote, poetry slams also sometimes create a counterpublic hybrid discourse. Now, this was written in MLA, as you can probably tell. So absolutely no paraphrasing, or well, I mean, some paraphrasing. The Habermas coffee shops was paraphrased, but nothing else was. The reason I brought this up, and this is not a lit review, it's just an example of synthesis in any essay. It's not a lit review actually, because these sources, the Reed and the Takahama, they're actually news articles. They're not scholarly articles. You don't want news articles in your lit review. You want to keep it 100% scholarly. So what I have here in synthesis, you kind of use the sources to build on each other. So the first sentence is entirely about the current event. The second sentence kind of starts drawing you into the literary theory you're working with. So it's a combo, in fact, like it's cited using two sources. And then the final sentence is involves the actual philosophy itself, where you start using the language of the public sphere theory, quote unquote. So the thing is, this is how you would kind of weave your sources together. Not in the lit review, but in any essay. And you should see students bringing in essays and doing something like this, especially if they have to use a minimum number of sources. So that's the general example of synthesis. Now let's take ourselves to the lit review. The first thing you want to look for is the commonalities between the sources. So, and I don't know if I want to read the whole thing here, but you have wording like he also Brown, the scholar named Brown, references the tutor mentioned in these scholars' work. He joins the other scholars mentioned above and indicating that this has its pitfalls. So here you talk about his work's similarity to their work. There's that consensus going on. And then research complements their research. Here I'm integrating, multiple sources in at once. And then you also want to build a little bit. So like, in the previous one, he was just agreeing with them. And in the second one, they provide an example for like how extensive this tool of discourse analysis is. So here they're actually adding more to the scholarly discourse surrounding this theme. And so this is essentially what you want to see in your literature review, a mix of agreement among the authors, and additionally a mix of building on their ideas of demonstrating how the works fit together to create a greater whole. Here we go. Now, how about some differences? You're probably going to see more differences in methodology than you're going to see in actual, like you're going to see dissent, because a lot of times the scholars in a certain field are going to be pretty on board with each other. But here, for example, there's a difference in scope. So a couple of scholars talked about, they found all these transcripts of interviews, which are part of a corpus or a body of literature, whereas these four authors instead focused entirely on their own writing centers at their own universities. And the nice thing about this difference is that it actually acts as a similarity, because you're showing just how extensive the research in the field is by demonstrating all these differences in methodology. In the second one, and it's a bit of a stretch, the first tutor talks about how directive approaches aren't necessarily shouldn't necessarily be the go-to. How if it's non-directive approaches might not be natural to a tutor, and so forcing a tutor to be less directive may cause some problems. But this other tutor, these other sources, the Makowicz and Thompson, say that no, collaboration can be a natural form of tutoring. Tutors don't necessarily have to force themselves into it. It's just, it comes naturally with the territory. So here you have a slight difference in interpretation of these interviews, of these recorded sessions. They don't disagree directly with each other, but highlighting these slight differences in opinion really help create this broader piece. Another thing you want to do, and this is a universal, this isn't just for literature review, and this is a process you can introduce to your students, is a reverse outline. So a student finishes up their essay, they got their introduction, however many body paragraphs, and their conclusion. And in order to make sure that the body paragraphs all fit together, all stay on point, and all contribute to essentially proving the arguments in the thesis, what you can do and what you can advise your Tutees to do is summarize each paragraph in one sentence. So if a paragraph can't be summarized in a sentence, then it's probably going off topic, it's probably disordered, the reader probably won't be able to follow it as well. So this is a good check, and this is a good check for your own work to make sure that it's clear, that it flows, and that the reader can follow it. The reason I brought this up with synthesis was because if you're working with so many different sources, you want to make sure you don't go too far afield. You want to make sure that each sentence, builds on the last cohesively. The nice thing also about literature reviews is that you can have a kind of organization pattern where you have, say, paragraph 1, and then subtopic, consensus, and however many sources, and then dissent, however many sources. And then you can move on to the subtopic 2 in your next paragraph. And these can all be summarized in one sentence, or should be able to all be summarized in one sentence. It can be a longer sentence, but it should be able to be condensed into something like that. And I wanted to give everyone an example as well. So I'm not going to read out this long paragraph. It's short. It's very small text, and it may take a while. But the first outline sentence I came up with was: discourse analysis can help writing center theorists determine if accepted writing center practices such as collaborative tutoring are as universally beneficial as we are taught. So the subtopic is essentially theory versus practice, and a subtopic could even be collaborative writing as a best practice grounded in theory, whether it actually holds up in practice. So now it's not a perfect paragraph, but if it can, and reverse outlining isn't necessarily the end all and be all. Like it could still have organizational issues, but I think it's a pretty solid check. It's something you can encourage your students to do if you start to see that their work is a little disorganized during a session. You can go, you can help them make a reverse outline sentence for one of the paragraphs and then have them do the rest on their own time. And then finally, how do we help them get there? They come in with a lit review or some kind of synthesis paper, which they do, especially like in the upper division psychology classes. They'll come in with this. So I went with the BCDEs of synthesis. I could have brought in A for analysis, but a lot of times analysis is construed as going really deep into one source or really deep into one text, and that's not what you want to do. You're more analyzing the connection between them. So I think the word an analysis is a little fraught there. So are they building? Are they expanding? And what about the commonalities and differences in methodology and scope, and finally in actual argument? Are they not putting themselves in there, but are they absent from it? And finally, how to help them, like if their essay is too, if they zero in on say one source, if they try to add opinion in there, which I've seen before, then you want to look over maybe a couple of their sources with them, just briefly skim, because I know you'll have half an hour or an hour, you won't have a lot of time, but take them to some of the like really meaty sections, like the introduction or the discussion or even methodology and focus on one of these. So like say, take them to the discussion and finding section of 2 of their papers and have them determine which of these elements best fits their point. And additionally, how it compares to the other. So yeah, have them take them to one section, have them take notes on their own time additionally, using some outlines on the similarities and differences between these sources and figure out how to go from there. And then just like with paraphrasing, they can expand these brief notes and turn it into something workable with the commonalities and the differences clearly outlined, and both of which in reference to some topic. So that's the lit review. Sorry, I skipped over the general synthesis. You want them to provide some context for their topic. So you're going to want them to include some definition. You're going to want them to include some scholarly context, some best practices, whatever topic they're working with, and then you're going to help them figure out, maybe the definition goes hand in hand with the timeline for when their topic was developed or studied. Maybe it goes hand in hand with some philosophy they're studying. So you're going to help them with that. So you only have to do it probably once for a certain part. So like take one paragraph and help them find some things which would fit together. Show them how to do it. Walk them through it, and then have them do the rest on their own. I also included some outlines here. So what is this could be helpful, talking about the individual sources, the purpose or argument, methodologies, results, and you can note, like, having them decide like this can help students figure out, how they compare, can help them work it into various topics. Another possible outline can involve the whole author and year idea. So you break it down into the following, into theme and author, and you can also pinpoint similarities and differences in that regard. So I have to ask, how how do you all feel about synthesis? Like what are your own experiences with it? Where do you all stand?
I think I've only written one paper.
That's okay.
In all these years of college, that could be even somewhat close to synthesis, maybe two. So this is really helpful because I'm like going, I really don't think I've had a whole lot of experience with this at all. So
Wonderful. I'm glad I could help. And let me tell you, you'll be doing more synthesis in like 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, AJ's nodding. Yeah, you will have enough synthesis to last you for a lifetime in a couple of weeks. But can you tell me more about that paper you used these skills for?
I was for what did I write about? I don't know. It was last term. How can I know? It was my
I'm putting on the spot there.
Paper I did it last term. It was like over a month ago. How can I?
Old news.
For sure.
It was on a Clarice Lispector book that I had to read for class. So I wrote
Aquaviva.
Yes, Aquaviva. So yeah, I did. I had to do research and read what everybody else was saying about it, and that was actually really interesting because I like that sort of thing because I'm kind of twisted and weird that way. I love to do as much research into something that I find interesting as humanly possible, or even stuff I don't find interesting, because you never know, you might find something interesting.
I love that. This is, yeah.
So it was interesting because in the research on her book, I was able, because like in the class, you read one other person's perspective on her writing, which is that French lady, and whose name is just gone from my head now. It's not happening. I've been on front of the screen all day since 9 o'clock this morning because I had school today and have not done that since forever, and my head is about to
join the club.
Anyway, but then as you do more research, you find these other people who have written about her extensively for years, even longer than some of them who wrote about her writing while she was still alive. So they've been doing it forever, and you find these different perspectives from the one. So that's what I found interesting to see, try to figure out how, or even if they built on each other, and wonder, do these people even like each other when they meet?
Was there a lot of dissent or dissension in the ranks?
Yeah, it was very interesting to just to get the different perspectives, and so because they're really strangely, God, I find her to be one of the most fascinating writers that I've read in school, but there's not a lot of people who write about her. It's just so weird. I would think there'd be more, but I was told by my professor that I had an unusual reaction to Lispector. So
that's good though.
So sorry, my heater's blowing right on me. So that's the one that I did, but I think that's really the only one that I could say was remotely close. So, but this would have been helpful.
For sure. Well, I'm glad this would have been, and it's good that you have at least that experience, which you can pinpoint. Yes, I've done it before. So this is really, really good, and hopefully you can even use your Lispector essay like as a guideline potentially. Like it sounds like it fits more under general synthesis, but there's still some overlap between general synthesis and lit review, so that'd be a good thing. All right, so Tiffany and Sophia, have you guys ever done anything synthesis related? Like, is there anything that comes to mind?
Not necessarily. I don't know. This is all kind of new, so it's just like hitting me at once.
For sure.
But I'm
But
excited to learn more about it and to experience it. So it'll be fun.
it really is. Like, it may seem overwhelming at first, but you'll see once you have a chance to like let it settle in. It's a lot of fun, and you'll do a great job. Like you'll see how things fit together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. It really
I
is.
certainly hope I do a good job.
You will, and you'll have a lot of time to practice. In this for this essay, you're gonna be you're gonna do an outline. You're gonna have peer review. You're gonna submit a rough draft. You're gonna do a final draft. You'll have an opportunity to redo your final draft for a few more points. So you will get this down rock solid. Um, yeah, but like how did you feel like about I know it's a lot of info. Um, did it make sense at least like from the outset? Like or was there anything specific you wanted me to go into more depth with or clarify things? I know it was a little bit muddled at certain points.
I feel like it gave me a good idea, but I'll know more once I start the course, you know.
For sure. Yeah, this is just like a general taste.
Yeah.
And
But it's been really good.
excellent. Awesome. And then Sophia, how about you? What have your experiences been with synthesis?
Yeah, I actually think that the paper that Sarah was talking about, I believe I was in the same class with her for that project, and I did mine for the stranger and the Mersault investigation. Um, it was interesting to see all the different opinions and seeing what people took from each piece and how they were relating it to each other. And then I also had related it to existentialism. So there was like a lot going on. So it felt like times like the waters are really muddled, but sorting through all of it was super interesting because I was like, I read the book, I don't remember how many times, and I did not get that. So it was just It's cool. I like it.
That speaks to my experience because like you hearing other perspectives, seeing what you may have missed, and like really coming to terms with it and really enjoying it is so much fun. It's like a whole adventure. So it sounds like you guys all have like similar experiences with it and really enjoy it. So this coming few weeks will be a treat. You'll really get to delve into something. You'll get to learn more about Writing Center scholarship. By the way, so two of you were talking about McClellan's class. She's the one who told me about the literature, the reverse outline. She's the one who encouraged me to use it on my own papers. So for those of you, like, I don't know, has she mentioned it to you guys, Sarah and Sophia?
didn't the two classes I had with her last term, I don't we really went over a lot of writing structure. They were both lit classes, so I don't remember her really talking a whole lot about writing structure at all, or how to put your paper together.
That makes sense. Yeah, especially for sure. Like she did it because I'll be honest, I struggled with organization like coming into the university. So this was something she very much wanted me to use for myself. And so this is something that can help your tutors. How about you, Sophia? Has she mentioned it in any of your classes?
Honestly, not that I remember, but at the same time, I'm not the smartest cookie. I don't have the best memory, but no, not
You're all good.
off the top of my head.
Still, yeah. So some experiences, but yeah. So this is something. Even though you guys haven't heard of it before, it's something that you can quickly tell your students about. In fact, she learned about it in a writing center, so we all kind of learn from each other here.
Sabrina, I think she expects you to tell everyone because I'm pretty sure you told me that in one of the tutoring sessions. So.
I did, didn't I? I'm now her.
So I think that's what it is. She just expects, Sabrina will tell them when they take their
we'll
paper.
Spread the word. That is great. Well, if that's the case, then I'm doing my job. I'm telling everyone I meet. I'll just run into someone on campus and say, "Hello, have you heard about the reverse outline?" So we're coming pretty close to the end. I want to hear from our experienced tutor here, AJ. I'm putting you on the spot now. Tell us about your experience with synthesis and any tips or tricks, reassurances, warnings.
I mean, I think you covered about everything I could say, honestly. And I know for a fact you all will be getting some really great experience with synthesis in the univ class, like Sabrina mentioned. Yeah, some of the essays and literature reviews and stuff we have to write for that class are some of the most I don't want to say tedious, but like you'll be thinking a lot about synthesis, working on those things, and it's actually very rewarding seeing what you guys can come up with. So yeah, you guys should look forward to that.
Absolutely, it'll be a lot of fun, and you'll be coming in to show us your stuff too. We'll read it, we'll engage with it.
Absolutely.
It'll be a pleasure. So it looks like I think we have like we have 5 minutes left. Did you guys, I don't know, did you guys want to practice your paraphrases, or no? Okay. You're all lectured out. I know sitting in front of a computer for an hour is a long time. So we have some great sessions coming up. We got Dorothy and transfer theory. We got AJ and online tutoring, which I'll be attending as well. So our roles will reverse. So if I think it's probably good, we can probably wrap now, unless there are any more questions, comments, concerns. Give you some time to stretch your legs, use the restroom, and then go and enjoy the remaining sessions. They'll do a kick-ass job. So it'll be a treat.
All right. Thanks so much, Sabrina. Great presentation.
Very welcome. You're welcome.
You.
Have a great one.
You're
welcome. See you.